All right, Dion, we're going to go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Live your life.
Live your life. Today, we welcome you today. Today is Labor Day. I hope you all have been enjoying your weekend and that you've been having
Yay.
with your family, however you can, barbecuing, resting, watching movies. And tonight, I hope that you would join us and so that you can end your weekend on a high note. Hello
Yay.
there, Wendy. Thank you so much for joining us on Labor Day. So, we are here to have some good conversation as usual. We're here to teach, inspire, motivate, encourage, push, and pull you to your purpose. We are here every Monday. Think outside the red box at
Yes.
7:30 p.m.
Yes.
Eastern. So I'd like to say that this month, our main topic is on abandonment. All right. So we are continuing with our Infections from Rejection series. And so this month, our Facebook Live, which is on the third Saturday, which is September 19th, we will have our Facebook Live on abandonment. And so all this week on Think Outside the Red Box, we will be talking about abandonment. Y'all, I have someone at my door. I'm so sorry about this.
Oh, my.
I had a feeling this was going to happen. I just knew that in the middle, as soon as I started my Facebook Live, my daughter was going to be dropped off. So I know y'all heard that doorbell, but I'm going to let Dion take over while I go answer the door. I will be right back. Go
Oh,
ahead,
my goodness. Well, we're talking tonight about we want to hear from you guys. We're talking about people pleasing tonight. So that's going to be our subject for tonight. First, we just want to just think about our good friend Chadwick Boseman. We just like to say Wakanda forever. For those of you all in his passing, we want to just remember him today. He passed on, so just wanted to make note of that. We're just seeing a lot of the photos and everything. But to get back to it, we're gonna get into people pleasing tonight and how it affects our lives and how it affects us moving forward. So yeah, go ahead, Angelina.
Hi,
Hey,
Katana. Thank you for
Katrina.
joining.
Hi, Katrina.
All
How are
right.
you?
So our topic for the month is abandonment. All right. That's part of our Infection from Rejection series. And so this month in the Think Outside the Red Box, we will be talking about different symptoms or signs of abandonment, right? Things that are showing up in our behavior that are clear signs of someone who has been abandoned. And so today's topic, which the title was You Can Have Whatever You Like, that what it's about people pleasing. And so all of our topics this Monday in the month of September will be focused around some type of, we can't do all of the behaviors, but a few of the behaviors that are signs of abandonment. So today we're going to talk about people pleasing, because people pleasing is something that is birthed out of someone who has been abandoned, right? Um, People who are can be abandoned more, it's not just physical abandonment. We're so used to hearing about the motherless or the fatherless, you not having your mother or your father in your life. Okay. But what about the abandonment when they're in the home? What about the mental abandonment, the emotional abandonment? You got that parent right in the home and they're not showing you any kind of love, no kind of affection. They don't talk to you. They don't spend no time with you. They'll have no quality time, and they're not nurturing you. They're not helping you grow into who you're supposed to be, right? And those things can cause you to become a people pleaser. Not only with them not being in your life, but you got to think about the fact that when you do have a parent that maybe is not in a home and they don't come and get you as often, you know, some of us parents out there have to realize that when you don't come to get your child, and maybe you call sometimes, you think that's okay. It's not okay. You still leave your children with a sense of abandonment, okay? And they deal with it. Some of our kids wear it well, but it shows up in our adulthood as people pleasing, because now we have gone through our childhood and some of our college years, our young 20s, and we have this feeling of why not me? Why they couldn't call me? Why they couldn't come pick me up? Why couldn't they make time for me? Was I not good enough? Is it the way I look? Is it what I do? Am I not, do I need to change something about myself? And then we start having all of these questions going on in our head about why they didn't love me the way I needed them to love me. And that grows into people pleasing, because now everyone we come across, whether it's friends, whether it is a significant other, husband, pastor, teacher, who?
Foes, friends or foes.
Yes. We are doing things to please them. We're doing things to make them happy, right? Because we want to be liked. We want to be accepted. We don't want the rejection. So we are going out of our way to make other people happy. Go ahead, Dion.
Yeah, I was thinking about people pleasing. I was thinking about approval, and I was thinking about addiction. How we look for approval, and a lot of times it can spawn into an addiction to please people. When we think about addiction, we think about addiction in terms of drugs or something of that nature. But it can also be in people pleasing. We can go overboard. We're trying to please people, or trying to do too much, or trying to be everything for people and be everywhere and overextending ourselves. And it could appear as though it's an addiction. We're killing ourselves out there, trying to please others and trying to make sure that others' needs are met while not tending to our own needs. So I wanted to go a little deeper with addiction. And addiction, even though I'm not a licensed psychologist or anything, but it talks about it being psychological need for a use or a habit forming. So we think that in terms of drugs, habit forming. When we think about addiction, that's what we think about, somebody on drugs or whatever. We don't think about, well, maybe somebody is having a personality crisis. Maybe they're having an identity crisis. Maybe just because they're having those crises because of what happened to them in their past, they're going overboard. They're addicted to pleasing others.
I would agree, because it just, I'm sorry, we keep hearing the echo.
I know, I hear it.
I don't know where it's coming from. I hope it's not too bad for you all out there listening in. But we can become an addiction. And again, we're just going out of our way to please other people. And it's at our own cost. It's at our own cost. So let me share a story. I remember there was a time in my life where everything I was doing was based upon trying to please other people, make everyone else happy, doing what they wanted me to do, how they wanted me to do it, where they wanted me to go. And I got to a point where I had a revelation that, wait a minute. They're happy and I'm not. What's wrong with this picture? All that I am doing to keep up with pleasing them and making them happy And all the while, it's at sacrificing my own happiness.
Mhm.
So I had to make a decision to say, you know what? I love me enough to seek my own happiness. And if that means making you unhappy in the process, I'm sorry, but I can no longer go out of my way to make you happy while I'm miserable. That just wasn't going to work for me. And so we have to look at our motives when we're um, doing things for other people. And that's not to say you shouldn't do things for other people, because you should. You should do stuff for other people. You should help other people. But you got to ask yourself, why? What is behind the giving? Am I doing this just because I want them to like me? Am I doing this just because I want to be accepted? Am I doing this because I just want to be belong in the clique? Am I doing this so I can get compliments and feel good about myself? Or am I really doing this out of the kindness of my heart because that's just what I'm led to do? Am I doing this to please somebody else? Or am I doing this because that's just my nature? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
It does. Well, and it can go both ways. You could just be generally a good person and you want to please, but then you have to think maybe there's something underlined when we go overboard like that. Because why do we think that it's so important for us to please others more than it is to please ourselves? We have to figure out what's the underlying thing that's creating those issues for us, because some of them can be emotional baggage that we're carrying. From 2000 or 2009, 2010, whatever the case may be, we could be here in 2020 and still dealing with something back in 2000 or 2010, or and trying to figure that out. So it could be that we are generally a good person, because my nature is to do good for others and to be just all around good person. That's my nature. That's my background. That's the way I was raised. My father raised me. However, there was some things in my past that created a rejection, which caused me to then want to please everybody. So even though you're a good person, it still could be some emotional connection or dysfunction that allows us to go overboard. Now, that's
Mhm.
not to say that we please our friends or our family or people that we come in contact, because the Bible wants us to be cognizant of that and wants us to treat everybody good and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, right? So we want to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do and the right thing that we're supposed to do, but we just need to make sure that there's a balance. And a lot of times, some of it is out of balance. So we just need to get back to balance.
So how do we get that balance?
Well, I mean, understanding who you are and not being afraid to take a good look in the mirror to figure out, okay, is it something in my past that wants me to give you diamonds and I don't even have any for myself? Is it something in my past that causes me to spend unnecessarily money to make sure that our friendship stays intact, versus me taking a good look in the mirror and figuring out what emotional breakdowns there have been so that I don't continue to do foolish things? So it derives from taking a good look in the mirror, seeing who you are, where you've been, where you come from, what's creating those issues, and changing them. But we have to not be afraid to take a good look in the mirror. I think a lot of times we don't look in the mirror because we don't like what's staring at us. We don't like what we see, because what we see challenges us. It makes us do something different. So yeah, you got to start with looking, like Michael Jackson said, you got to look at the man in the mirror, even though he probably didn't know what he was talking about at the time when he said it. But you got to not be afraid to look at the man in the mirror.
I think Michael Jackson knew what he was saying, or whoever wrote that song. I think they knew what they were saying.
Maybe not. We'll try, but yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, you bring up that song, and that's like such a good point, because I mean, in everything we do, and in everything we've been teaching at Becoming Being, it all boils down to you. You always got to look at the man in the mirror. Everything starts with you. You want to see change? within yourself, it starts with you. If you want to see change in your marriage, it starts with you. If you want to see change in your relationships at work, it's all going to start with you. It's not going to just miraculously change until you change. You change
Right.
how you're showing up, and you change how you are responding to the situation. And so, even with the people pleasing, like as you said, you have to start with your identity, and you got to start with some healing and addressing what is causing you to be a people pleaser, and going back and saying, okay, well, what in my past happened that has caused me to respond in this manner, and be able and willing to address that. And I think that's hard for a lot of people. What I'm finding, as I continue to work with different ones and continue to teach classes, is that it's very, very difficult for people to address the things of their past, especially when they think that they peeled from it. I don't know how many times I've heard people say to me, well, I'm over that. That I'm over that. That's in the past, or I've healed from that. That's not a problem or issue for me anymore. When and truly, it really is, because it's showing up in the behavior. And while that situation, you may not necessarily feel the pain in your heart anymore, you have not fully dealt with it, because it's showing up in your life, in your behaviors. And until you really address that thing and cut it off where it is, and that's the only way you're going to be able to change your behavior, change your mind, change your identity.
We talked about this one time about having a sore or having an infection on your arm. And, if you don't tend to the infection, the new skin goes over. And sometimes the stuff that's left behind, the scar tissue, maybe even some new skin has come over there, and it's still some infection underneath. And sometimes people get limbs cut off because they don't deal with the infected part of it. So it creates the issues. I'm glad you talked about marriage, though, because it brings me to something that I wrote down earlier. And it just, it was kind of like marriage. Marriages should be something that creates reciprocity. And instead, if you bring that baggage into a marriage and you haven't dealt with it, then things begin to fall apart, because that person doesn't identify with anything other than what they think or what they've seen or what they haven't gotten in those relationships. So instead of people pleasing, it turns around to, now I'm going to blame you for everything, or I'm going to make you responsible for that. So it can go both ways. You know what I'm saying? You could not, then they could not take responsibility and do directly the opposite. So we have to be really careful, because it's such a sensitive matter. When we think about the Bible, and we think about Moses, and we think about genocide, and Moses being a Hebrew and being raised as an Egyptian, and Moses having to please the Egyptians and then try to please the Hebrews. Can you imagine what kind of mess that was for him? He didn't have an identity crisis. He didn't know who he was. His mom trying to save him, thinking that she was doing the best for him. She put him in a basket, sent him down the river, and the Egyptian woman found him and said, yep, we're going to raise him as a king. We're going to put some nice clothes on him. We're going to make him look like a king, prince anyway. And she did just that. So then Moses had to lead people. And can you imagine trying to lead as a Hebrew after living as an Egyptian most of his life? And trying to please. No wonder Moses couldn't talk. He didn't even know what to talk about.
Interesting.
Yeah, he didn't know who he was. So Moses had identity crisis.
Yeah, he was trying to please everybody. He was
please everybody.
Even when it came to Israel, he was taking them to the wilderness. I sent this in a whole nother direction. Okay, we not here people, but in Exodus, when he took them into the wilderness, right? He's doing all he can to please Israel, bending backwards and forwards and trying to give Israel whatever they want, pleading their case, to God about Israel and being with them and guiding them through, right? And he was abandoned. He was
Okay.
abandoned. He got love.
He
And
did.
that's
It
some people fail to understand.
wasn't good
Somebody
enough.
can still love you, but if you've been abandoned,
You've
right?
been a
And it could be with the best of intentions for your life, but
absolute.
that doesn't always negate that feeling of abandonment that you feel, or that feeling of loneliness of not having or being without. And you have some people that, maybe their father wasn't around, but they had a stepfather, and you still had that stepfather who showed you love and, cared for you and raised you, but you still end up with these abandonment issues because your biological father was not there, right? Was not there for me. Why didn't they come around? So, but we also, I want to acknowledge that being abandoned, it affects people differently. Everybody is not going to have the same reactions to being abandoned. Some people will have the withal and the know in their mind, they'll be able to rationalize that this person couldn't be there for me because of this, and be able to accept that and not take it personally, versus some people don't have the capacity when they're young to be able to rationalize that. And so that's why you grow up with abandonment issues that look different in different people, because everyone's experience and processing of the situation is different, right? So,
Well, and it speaks to rejection. Think about it. It speaks to rejection. Um, we internalize it different. I remember one time, um, because of my father issues, I remember one time I was friends with this girl that was a bully, and my need to have friends was so great in my life that I would give her my spending money. My mom would give me money every day, and I would give her my spending money just so she could be my friend. But she was the worst bully. Can you imagine being friends with a bully because you didn't want to be bullied? So what you do? You pay the bully off. You give them your stuff. So I mean, rejection comes in so many forms, and we do what we either do for survival or either to feel better. It's like being an addict. We try to do what we can to make sure that people understand that we love them and we'll do anything for them. It's like an addiction, just trying to keep your head above the water. So I gave my money away for years until I woke up one day and realized, why am I fool? Why are you giving your money away? It could be your own little snack money. You don't need her as your friend. So I finally got rid of the bully and didn't care what she did, but it took me a while. It took me a while.
that's
So
as you
yeah,
tell that story, I think to myself, I would have been like, "You gonna have to beat me because you is not getting my food money because a sister likes to eat. Okay, I like food, I like my snacks, and you is not about to get my money because I'll be eating my snack with that black eye. I tell you that. You can hit me all you want to, but I'm getting my snack."
and look, I was a fighter. I grew up with boys. Great, I used to fight boys. I don't know why I didn't want to have a confrontation with a girl, but I just think that whatever deficiency that was in me allowed me to get another snack money. And when I woke up, though, I woke up. She was like, "Oh, you don't want to be my friend?" No. But but my position was to please her, whatever it took. So if she was gonna get me with 15 or 20 cents, whatever it was that my mom had given me, yeah, I was okay with getting it to her.
Well, y'all are quiet tonight. Y'all not talking to us like y'all usually do. Tell us your thoughts about people pleasing. Why, there could be other reasons too. It is not just abandonment, but that just happens to be a symptom of abandonment, but that's not the only reason why people are people pleasers. There could be other things that happen in their life too, but we're just talking about abandonment this month. So people pleasing, always going out of your way. Know your motive. That's what I want to say before we sign off here. Know your motive of what's in your heart. Are you doing this to be liked? Are you doing this to be accepted? Are you doing this to be in a clique, or to be part of a social club or whatever you want to call them? Are you doing this to get compliments? But some people, it's just our nature. But sometimes we can just go too far. We can just go too far. And when it starts to violate who you are, and it begins to violate your character, then you have to stop and take another look. Deaconess Tana says, well, listen to Dion, people pleasing can come from childhood abuse. Yes, yes, it could. It could come from childhood abuse, because, again, why are they treating me this way? Why are they treating me this way? Why don't they love me enough? What's wrong with me that they don't love me enough to treat me right? Right? And so then we grow up wanting to please people so that they'll like me. Fear, she says, fear also can cause people to be people pleasing. Katana, elaborate on that. What's your thoughts when you say fear? I'm gonna wait for you to put that in the chat. So if there's other, what are you laughing, Dion?
That's funny. I thought that was the. I think about sometimes, we sabotage relationships sometimes, because of dysfunction, because of wanting approval, because some people don't, like all of that fall all over me type of stuff, or it's too much. So even in marriages, we sabotage marriages, because of fears, and like you said, or because of emotional woes.
She gonna make me fall out my chair.
Be real pleasing
Can also cause you to walk in rebellion because you would rather please people than to obey and please God. Come on here.
Absolutely.
Come
Absolutely.
on here.
Actually, that was one of the things that I had to say in my closing. So she took my closing, but that's okay.
You can repeat it. Echo.
Yeah, she took my closing. Maybe I'll echo her.
She says, being afraid of being disliked, being afraid of not being accepted. Exactly. 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 We have Pastor Dolores says, what is the motive for people pleasing? Right? What's in the heart? What's in the heart? What is your motive behind the people pleasing? Right? And again, if we're looking into why we're doing it, am I doing it just to make them happy? Because sometimes we will inconvenience ourselves, and then we do things, and then we get so upset. We be so angry with them that they asked us and they didn't consider me and this, that, and the third, and we go home all upset when all we had to do was say no.
Right.
All we had to do was say I didn't have time,
Right. How about we get so busy people pleasing, and then when they have that dinner or that party and they don't invite us to it, and then we all been out of shape, we feel like our world is crushed because that person that we went overboard with doesn't go overboard for us.
Right. It says people pleasing could be motivated by a strong desire for approval and external validation. And so then again, where does that come from? What happened in your past that is causing you to have this strong desire for approval and validation outside of yourself and outside of God? As Katana said earlier, we walk in rebellion because we are so we're more eager to please the people than we are God. right? And so why? Because what everything we should be doing should be for God and what He has instructed us to do, and what He has designed you to do as your purpose here in life. And sometimes we will avoid that or ignore that or not pursue it or give it the time that we should be giving it because we're too boggled down people pleasing. And now the time that I should be spending on my purpose is being spent doing everything else for somebody else. And they end up becoming distractions just because I want their validation and approval. But what about God's validation and approval of you and who you are and what you should be doing? Do we consider that? Also said insecurity in relationships. Absolutely. So insecurity is another one of those things that when we're talking about rejection and abandonment, that insecurities show up. And those insecurities can cause you to want to please people to keep them around, right? I'm going to do whatever I got to do to keep them around and to keep them in the relationship. You about to say something, Dion?
No, I was just thinking about what Apostle Benny be teaching on pride. Pride keeps us from doing the right thing a lot of times. Sometimes we feel like, we allow our pride to get in the way because we feel righteous about something that we're doing, even though it might not be right. We let pride get in the way. And again, it brings us back to our identity. I have to keep on coming back to identity because it's an identity crisis. We have emotional baggage that we're carrying around and can't fix because we don't want to deal with who we are or why we are the way that we are. We're having identity issues. So it brings us back to pride, the pride of life. We need to work on our pride and our self-fulfillment because it's more important that I am self-fulfilled than it is to please God or fulfill what it is that He desires for me to do.
Right. It's about you have to seek your happiness. Yeah. Who
Who
dropped?
dropped you? Wow.
Right. That's kind of deep.
Who
That's
dropped you? That's
very,
a
very
mouthful
deep.
there.
And that's gonna cause you again to have to do some reflection and go back in your past and figure out who
Look at the
dropped
man in the mirror. Look at the
right?
man in the
who,
mirror.
who dropped the ball. Where is this coming from? And again, we got to stop thinking that I'm because I don't feel it fully here that it's not there. I'm healed because it's showing up in your behaviors. It's showing up in your behavior. So you're still gonna have to go back. You're gonna have to go back and address that thing and reconcile with it and so that you can cut it off for good and change that behavior. We got a question here. How do you rid of that chip on your shoulder? Is that pride? Well, what's the chip
Yeah.
on the shoulder? It depends on what the chip on the shoulder is. Tell us
Yeah.
what chip.
What's the tip? Yeah. Because
Can be a chip, but what is
it certainly could be
shoulder?
pride, but what is it?
Pride? Do we have pride, or are we angry, or are we bitter? What exactly is the chip? Because it could be pride, but it could be something else. But
Right.
at any rate, no matter what the chip is, how do you get rid of it? Again, what I just said is you're gonna have to go back and find out where's the chip coming from. Where is it? What's the root? You get to the root of it, so you can cut it off at the root.
Right.
So
Where it starts.
why am I so angry? Why am I so prideful? And you got to remember the pride, it shows up. Let me tell y'all something. See, y'all, we're supposed to be done at 8 o'clock. Okay, y'all done got me excited. My apostle has been preaching about that pride. And I'm going to have to go back and take some notes. He had a lot of sermons on him. I have to go back and take some notes because he has given so many different examples of the things that we do in everyday life that because we have not paid attention is pride. All right. And the same thing goes for anything when we talk about abandonment. There's so many different signs and symptoms all wrapped up in that one abandonment of how it's showing up in your life. And so there's all these things wrapped up in pride showing up in your life. And I have to go back and take some notes because I'm just gonna make a confession. I didn't think he was talking about me. Till we got to about, I don't know, the third sermon in, and I'm like, wait a minute. He talking about me, y'all. Oh no, he talking about me, y'all. For real, Apostle, that's me. Prideful. Sometimes we don't even realize, but we have to go back. So now I have to go back because the signs that he gave me that showed me what is pride, I have to now take that and say, where is that stemming from?
Right.
The way I've been acting, the things that I've been holding on to, the perfectionism within me, where is this all coming from? The whole enabler, we talked about that. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. We talked about the enabling, the whole not letting things fall apart. We gotta fix everything and make everything work, and we want. Where does all of that come from? Right? I'm gonna have to go back, like anything we do, and get to the root of what has caused that type of behavior. You have to get to the root. That's the only way you can. That's the only way that you can be able to get rid of, to start to address it, so that you can get the chip off of your shoulder. I hope that. Well, he says something to prove. It's pride.
It's pride. If you got to prove something, it's pride.
Now, that pride could have stemmed from other stuff as well, right? Again, we can go back to abandonment and rejection, because if we've been rejected and we feel like nothing we did was good enough, nothing we did was right, then when we grow older, we want to be right. Like, we want to be right because nothing I ever did was good. So not only are we a people pleaser, but we want to be right. We want everything that we do to be perfect. We want everything that we do to be good and acceptable to other people. And then so we got something to prove. And that could turn into pride when you feel like, I always got something to prove, and then I always got to be right. And so I always got to show somebody up in a conversation, right? You got to get to the root of, why am I this way? Why do I have something to prove? Because honestly, you don't have anything to prove to nobody but God. And that goes back to what Dion was talking about earlier, is identity. Once we begin to realize who we are and what we were created to do, and we know what our purpose is, and we can then focus on our purpose, and then we don't have to worry about proving anything to anybody. It is what it is. I am who I am. Who you see is me 100% of the time, no matter where I'm at. Whether I'm at home, I'm at church, I'm at school, I'm at work, I'm at the grocery store, I'm at the park. What you see is what you get. I know who I am. I know who God created me to be. I don't have to prove nothing to you. Having to prove things to people, it's a form of pride, and sometimes we can get that way from rejection.
So Kim, I have to ask you, who dropped you? That's one of the questions that Pastor Dolores asked, a message that Apostle preached one time. Who dropped you? Who do you have to prove something to? If it's not to God, then who are you proving something to? We have to be able to identify what pride is and how pride manifests itself. A lot of times we think that's just the way that we are, because the way that we were raised, or just because of the way that we do things. That doesn't mean that just because we do it that way, that it's the right way, even though it might be right. It might not be what God is created for you, or what he has fashioned you for. See, a lot of times we want to get away from what God has created us to what Dion has created and what lifestyle she's created. And just because it's right or it's good or it might have a semblance of working, doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that that's what God meant or intended. So sometimes we have to look at who dropped us. I'm feeling that, Apostle. Who dropped us? Who dropped you?
He said myself.
Wow. Wow.
Cam, I'm here to tell you in this moment, I'm just hearing that it was not you. It was not you. You can't just drop yourself, okay? Because it doesn't start with you, right? Someone else was carrying you. Someone else was responsible for you. There were other people who were supposed to be nurturing you and protecting you and guiding you, okay? And things happen. But for you to say that it was yourself, it wasn't yourself. Um, so we'll have to talk.
And just want to say, right, I just want to say you may have let yourself down by some of the things that you've done or some of the things that you've created. You may have let yourself down, but somebody dropped you.
Yeah, somebody had to drop you for you to feel that you've let yourself down because yeah, I can't talk about that over Facebook Live. I'll have to call you. We'll have to talk. All right, y'all. We are over time. I do appreciate your participation. We're here every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Think outside the red box. We are just here to, again, motivate you, inspire you, teach you, encourage you, push you, pull you into purpose, to pull you into who God created you to be. And so we hope that each and every Monday that you join us, that you get something out of this and you take something that you can apply to your life. So continue to listen in. Don't forget that we do have, we're continuing our infection from rejection series. And so we have our main Facebook Live on every third Saturday. So in the month of September, it's going to be on September 19th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, where we will get more into abandonment. And for the month of September on Think Outside the Red Box, we will be addressing different signs of I call them residue or behaviors stemming from abandonment. So today we talked about people pleasing. Next week we're going to talk about controlling. I run it. That's what it's called. I run this. So next week we're going to talk about I run this. All right. So please check out our page, Becoming a Being. We have our Facebook Live events set up there. So check out, sign up for the notifications so you'll get notifications of when it comes on. And I thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you all have a good evening. Dion, any sign off that you want to give?
Yeah, just want to encourage you guys to stop people pleasing. Know that people pleasing is a sign that maybe something is broken. So and concentrate more on God pleasing, understanding who you are in God and allowing him to speak to you what he wants for you so that you can please him. And remember, you teach who you are. And if you don't like what you're teaching, you have the opportunity to change it.
Yep. And before I forget, check us out on Thursday. Well, not us, but I have been invited to do a presentation for Overflow Ministries Covenant Church, where we will be talking about splitting heirs, how to transfer wealth to your heirs. And so we will get into estate planning. That is on Thursday, September 11th. And it's at 7:00 p.m. And so make sure you come to my page because I will be doing a watch party so that you all can engage in that as well. So thank you so much. And we'll be signing off and have a good evening. And we'll see you next time.
Stay at peace and not in pieces, everybody.
See ya.